Good morning, everybody. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid, in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearings may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are also are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect that instruction. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the province of Ontario amended the Planning Act to generally remove rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching your 5 minutes. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we first call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation, and when all speakers are finished, the agent or applicant has the opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Now, before we get to the first item, I should ask, are there any confirmation of minutes from the last meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are 3 sets of minutes to approve. I'm just going to read them off for you.
Okay.
First one is August 15th. Present was Member Schwartz, Member Kubo, Member Marziari, Member Casson, and Member Jordan. Sorry, Allison.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Yes, Mr. Kaboo?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented today.
Okay, thank you. I see a second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second set is August 29th. Present was Member Allison, Member Nipfel, Member Bartolo, Member Kubo, and Member Farzelli.
We have a motion. Yes, Mr. Kubo.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would also like to put a motion to adopt the minutes of the hearing as presented this morning as well.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our last set of minutes is September 12th. Present was Member Schwartz, Member Nipfel, Member Bartolo, Member Sankar, and Member Casson.
Okay, a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move a motion to adopt the minutes from that date.
Okay, thank you. Second. Yes, Mr. Bartolo seconds that. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, are there any declarations of interest of the panel or staff? Okay, I see none. And any other matters that we need to address?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's one more. Can I please have a motion to adopt the North York District 2025 Committee of Adjustment hearing dates, which were forwarded to you previously?
Yes, can we get a motion for those dates?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll put forward a motion to adopt the dates.
Thank you, Mr. Bartolo. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Fazeli, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, seeing as that there are no other items, housekeeping matters to deal with, let's get on to our deferral request this morning, specifically with respect to the 10 a.m. slot. I believe there are 3 items that are requesting deferral.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. The first one that we have is item number 5. The address is 23 Beechwood Avenue.
Okay, we have the applicant or agent with us. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, members of the committee. I'm respectfully requesting a deferral. I'm Ira Kagan, and I'm the lawyer for Mr. and Mrs. Gadaki. When we received the...
Sorry, just interrupt. Your address?
188 Avenue Road, Toronto, M5R2J1.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. So, having received the comments from Urban Forestry and City Planning, and having reviewed all of the comments from the neighbors, my client wants to make some changes to the proposal. We understand that can't be done on the fly here today, so we're requesting a deferral to give us time to file those plans, get a revised preliminary review notice, new notice can be sent out, and then we can have our hearing.
Okay, I'm in support of a deferral. I think you and your applicant might use that time to amend some of the concerns that were brought forward. Okay, do we have any other speakers on this item before we go any further?
We do, Mr. Chair. There's a number of speakers.
Okay, can we have our other speakers? And before we do, I'm just going to ask anybody else speaking to this item. We're just speaking specifically to the request for deferral. We're not getting into the merits of the application, only speaking to the deferral request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Alloway, initial G. I am one of the speakers registered here. We reside at 23 Hedgewood Road. We are immediately an adjacent property to the proposed development. I think I can speak on behalf of the other members of the community that are here. I've just taken a straw poll. We would like to ask that the matter come back after the election of our councillor. Our late councillor Jay Robinson, who was our advocate at the City of Toronto and had an extensive file, and there's extensive correspondence in that file as it relates to this particular matter. Unfortunately, with her passing, we are without representation. So I think it's only appropriate for us to be able to ask that there's an election that's coming up in November, that this matter be put over to after we can also have further discussions and the elected representative have the opportunity to review the extensive files that are already with the City of Toronto concerning this matter.
I should ask, is there an interim counselor right now?
Not that we know of.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to have the applicant speak to that request. Thank you. Do we have any other speakers here in the room that wish to speak to this item? Okay, staff, do we have any speakers online?
We've unmuted a David Marowitz, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Hello, everybody. I have been unmuted in error. I have nothing to add to this request to extend.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We don't need the address. Do we have any other speakers online?
We have a Danny Fleischer and a Stephen Reed, Mr. Chair. However, they're not present. This
Okay.
time.
And I guess we don't have anybody else then? Okay. Let's go back to the applicant. Just want to give them an opportunity to speak to the deferral request. Specifically, we heard one of the parties here in opposition ask for, they support the deferral, but they're asking for the deferral to come after the next city councillor comes in for the ward. I'll give you an opportunity just to speak to that matter.
Thank you very much. I'm actually not aware of when the election is. So if it were months and months away, I couldn't support that length of a deferral. I also don't know how long it takes once the election is held for the counselor to actually be appointed, start their job, and get up to speed. So again, I don't know what the length of the request is. My understanding of how these deferrals work, and I'm in your hands if I'm mistaken, is that we've got to do updated plans. We've got to get a list of the new variances. We're going to need new comments, obviously, from urban forestry and planning, and obviously the public may have new comments. All of that takes some time, and then we're in your hands in terms of when there's a slot on the agenda. So if it turns out that the election really is in November, I doubt we'd be able to get back to committee before then anyway, so this might be moot. But I'm not comfortable agreeing it to deferral until the new councillor is ready, because I have no idea how long that is.
Okay.
So my request then is just to do the deferral in the normal course, and things may work out just fine in terms of the new councillor election.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, let's take this matter into committee for a decision. I'll just start off by saying this. City councillors tend to have little, if no, impact on decision. We treat them as if they're any other member of the public. I do note that there is some opposition to this application, and I might suggest that it may be beneficial for the applicant or the agent to actually meet with the neighbors. There may be some other resources which they can utilize in terms of mediation. Whether or not they choose to reach out to the acting councillor or any other resources that might help to mediate the matter. But I don't think I'm prepared to defer this on a condition that the next city councillor comes in. I just feel like it's sort of undue sort of burden to put on the applicant, but I'll open it up to other members if should they have any other comment. Maybe a motion.
Yeah,
Bartolo.
I think we can proceed. I tend to agree there, Mr. Chair. The deferral is appropriate. The fixed timeline pending election and appointment and communication, I don't think is. So I'll put forward a motion to defer this this application sine die.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Okay, thank you, Mr. Fazeli. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The application is deferred, and I will say, if there's an opportunity, I would suggest you try to reach out to the neighbors and try to at least make a little bit of headway on this before you come back.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I just want to confirm the reasons for the deferral. I have written down that it was to speak to the departments that had voiced concerns and to revise plans and to get a new zoning review and a new public notice. Just confirming that is the reason?
That's correct, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our next item requesting a deferral, item number 9. Number 16, Coldwater Road.
Morning.
The purpose of this application is to permit a reduction of parking spaces and provided and the relocation of a loading zone at a school and a childcare facility. We've got 2 variances before us for the number of parking spaces and for loading. On file, I've got material from the applicant as well as a memo from Development Engineering requesting deferral. Do we have the agent with us?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name's Andrea Masachek. I'm with Baird Sampson Newart Architects, acting on behalf of the Central Montessori Schools. We are requesting this deferral in correspondence with Transportation Services recommendation that the hearing be deferred in order that a supplemental parking study be prepared to address the concerns Transportation Services raised. This memo from Transportation Services was received September 27th, which did not afford us enough time to prepare a report, present it to Transportation, and have comments back in time for today's hearing. So we respectfully request a deferral so that we can put together a fulsome parking study, address the concerns, and move forward with the application.
Okay, thank you. And just to confirm, did we get your address?
Oh, I'll give you my business address. We're at 317 Adelaide Street West, Suite 1002, Toronto, Ontario, M5V1P9.
Okay, thank you. And can I just confirm, we have a second person here on my list from 16 Coldwater Road. Is that your client?
I don't see the list or the name, so if you
Arsalan
could share that, I'd be-
Mohajer? Apologize if I
Yes,
didn't.
Dr. Mohajer is the owner of the property.
Okay, great. So we don't need to hear from them. Okay, so we have a deferral request. Let's take this into committee for a decision.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to defer this application to give the applicants the time to address the transportation concerns, especially the parking study.
Okay, very good. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Bartolo. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is deferred.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 11, 160 Shepherd Avenue. The purpose of this application is to construct a residential apartment building. Got a number of variances, including FSI, drive aisle width, building type, building height, platform projection, distance of a safety projection from a main wall, lot coverage, number of stories, first story height, front yard setback, and rear yard setback. On file, I have material from the applicant as well as a memo from transportation, as well as a memo from urban forestry and a late staff report from community planning. We have the applicant with us in person. Welcome. Please state your name and address.
Sorry for that. Good morning. The name's Michael Cook. I'm a lawyer at Davies Howe, and the address is 425 Adelaide Street West, Unit 10, M5V 3C1. So I am the agent to the owner of the site, and on Monday, we received the report from Transportation Services that identified a specific issue with respect to the way the driveway meets the street. The issue is not related to the variances, but it requires a redesign of the driveway that unfortunately would require significant changes to the design of the building. Essentially, we'd have to move the driveway a meter to the east, which would run into the core of the building, the elevator core, the stairs, and so it does require a significant redesign of the building. And to do that, we need a little more time. We have looked into it, but we weren't able to address the issue in the few days we had before today. And of course, that redesign may impact the variances being requested. So on that basis, we are asking for a deferral.
Okay. I also note that community planning had their own staff report. Perhaps you could speak to that.
Yep, so community planning, and I should note that I did engage in pre-application discussions with planning, specifically with the authors of that report, and they've identified their concerns with respect to this proceeding by way of a minor variance. Respectfully, I disagree, and when the time comes to advance the application, I'm happy to make submissions in that regard, but there is the potential to continue to work with planning in the course of the redesign. In fact, because it may impact the variances being requested, there will be the opportunity to go, they'll have to probably issue another report. Similarly, I would note that Transportation Services had comments in addition to just the width, not the design of the driveway, they had comments on the width of the drive aisle, which is one of the variances being requested. And so that may be impacted as well and potentially resolved through a redesign.
Okay. Okay, very good. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an unusual application. I mean, typically you see these with a rezoning. Not to say that this couldn't be worked through committee. So I would be in support of a deferral. I'll ask my colleagues what they think, but I believe there could be benefit from having some additional discussion with community planning as well as transportation to resolve some of those issues.
And I would note, I was quite excited to present this proposal to the committee this morning. I recognize that there are some issues, but it's a wonderful project. It's a 10-unit rental building, and so we were really excited to present it today. But we do want to resolve some of the issues to the extent possible.
Okay, let's try to get some of those worked out.
Thank you.
All right, let's go into committee for discussion.
Mr. Chair, there is a speaker, additional speaker.
Thank you. Have our additional speaker with us?
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Neil Smiley from Foskin Law Firm, and I'm here on behalf of the owner.
Mr. Smiley, we're having some difficulty hearing you. Could you speak a little closer to the mic?
Yes, I'll try, and I apologize I'm bending over to do that. I'm here, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, on behalf of the owner of the property immediately to the west, 164 Shepherd Avenue East. We would not object to a deferral, but I do caution the committee that I too share the objection or recommendation of refusal by planning staff, that this matter is not appropriately to be heard by the committee. It would never meet the third test of satisfying the zoning bylaw or the general intent because the apartment use in variance number 3 is not permitted. But I do support the applicant going back and doing his homework and seeing you another day.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm going to go back to the applicant. So we've heard. If you could hear there. I mean, he does raise some fair points of consideration, but I'll let you speak to that.
Unfortunately, I'd not been aware that Mr. Smiley had objections. I've heard his concerns specifically with respect to the use. I will say that the site is zoned CR, commercial residential, but no FSI is allocated to the residential use. So I appreciate the sensitivities around use variances, and his note specifically with respect to the ability to satisfy the third test for minor variance. I believe he's speaking to whether or not it satisfies the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The issue here, though, in my respective submission, is not one where the use is prohibited or not contemplated. We have residential standards in the bylaw to apply to this proposal, notwithstanding that the FSI isn't provided for in the bylaw. So on that basis, I would submit that this is an appropriate situation for a variance with respect to use. It is not clear-cut that the use is prohibited, and so that is why we are continuing to push for this to be advanced through the minor variance process. And in speaking with community planning, this project was designed in response to a secondary plan, the Sheppard-Lansing secondary plan that was passed by the city, which sets out its vision for this area of Sheppard Avenue West. And this has been designed directly in response to that plan. And as acknowledged by planning, the zoning hasn't been updated. So that's the situation we're in. But
Okay.
this project wouldn't survive the costs and time associated with a rezoning application.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. Let's take this matter into committee for a decision. Yeah.
I'm happy to make
Decision
a,
on the deferral.
yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Listen, I understand the position of the applicant and receiving the transportation comments and needing to react to them. So therefore, I'll put forward a motion to defer this item sine die to allow them to coordinate with the city and amend their plans as required.
I might, it's a friendly suggested amendment, maybe include to engage in discussions with the immediate neighbor. No?
I'm not opposed to the neighbors being cooperative and working with each other. There's no issues. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just as just perhaps to address that. Okay, so we've got a motion. Then do we have a second? A second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The deferral is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I think that concludes the deferrals for the morning. So we can proceed to item number 1.
All right, thank you. Item number 1 is a application for consent. It's to obtain consent to sever the 2 existing lots at 387 and 389 Hounslow Avenue to create 3 new lots. We've got a number of variances that are related to the request for consent, including lot area, lot coverage, east side yard setbacks for a front porch and canopy, building length, building depth, main wall height, number of stories, front porch area, rear deck area, lot coverage, building height, front door height, east side yard setback for a cold room, rear deck, east and west side yard setbacks that relate to the building itself. Okay, let's get the agent or applicant online.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Franco Romano, Action Planning, 321 Lakeshore, here on behalf of the owner.
Good morning, Mr. Romano. Just to confirm, I see another individual on my list. Just to confirm that they're with you, Mr. Marquis from Marquis Architect Inc. Is that?
Yes, Paul Marquez is the architect, and they initially submitted the application. So seems to me that that there's being a double registration, so I'll be the only one here to speak on behalf of the owner.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that clarification. I also see here we've got on file a number of items, including material from yourself, as well as a memo from Engineering and Construction Services, a memo from Transportation Services, a memo from Urban Forestry, and a late staff report from Community Planning. Just want to confirm, have you seen those items, specifically the late staff report that came in?
Yes, thank you for that question. I have seen the planning staff report. I was aware of it before this item was confirmed for today, and obviously the report came in after. And I'll speak to the report. I'm also aware that Urban Forestry's conditions of approval are satisfactory, so is Transportation's and Engineering. There's two memoranda from Engineering. The latest one is I think it was a couple of months ago. It has the conditions of approval.
Okay, very good. All right, let's get the 5 minutes up. I want to give you the floor for a brief presentation. Yes, Mr. Casson.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Chair. There is a memo attached, an email from the architect asking for a deferral. Could the applicant just clarify that?
Mr. Romano?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I think there was some late discussion between the planning department and the architect regarding some of the variances. Some of the variances were identified as incorrectly listed in that email from planning staff. So the initial email or letter from the architect was to defer, but then having clarified that those variances were actually not on the list of variances before the panel, the deferral request was withdrawn, and confirmation of wanting to proceed was provided by Paul Marquez's office to City Planning and Committee.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that clarification. Does that answer your question, Ms. Casson? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Romano, the clock is up and the floor is yours.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thanks, staff, for bringing up my presentation slides. It's a short 2-slide presentation, but this is the subject lands involve 2 properties, and the proposal is to subdivide those 2 properties in order to create a 3rd property. You'll see that the 2 easterly lots are proposed at 12.19 meters, and their lot areas are just about 490 square meters. It's 489.6 and 0.7. The westerly lot is proposed at 10.77 meters and a lot area of 432.4 square meters. I know staff indicated the references to lot frontage in a broader area, but I don't believe that they really look too closely to the immediate context. And what I'm showing in the bottom of this slide 1 is the immediate context. It's a very long block. It contains 75 properties, plus the 2 subject site. The 2 subject properties are the largest in the area on the street in terms of lot frontage and lot area. They're about 18 meters in frontage, 17.6, and over 700 square meters in lot area. As compared to what is occurring on the street next door, there are 2 lots that are 9.9 meters in lot frontage and about 390 or so square meters in lot area. So those are smaller than what is being proposed at the 12.19 and 10.77 and over 400 square meters. Indeed, on the street, we'll see that properties that are less than 15 meters in frontage and is similar in terms of lot area are represented by 39% of the lots. And several of these have been severances that have occurred over the last 10 to 12 years. I've been involved with a number of them throughout the neighborhood, including a couple on this street. And if we look at lots that are smaller than 12.2 meters, which is the pink or the purple that's on that map at the bottom of slide 1, 21% on the street alone, just Hounslow itself, are less than 12.2 meters. So the proposal at 10.77, 12.19 really does respect and reinforce the neighborhood character, particularly the street, including what's happening next door and across the street. In terms of the dwelling design, The majority of the variances have to do with height and side yard setbacks. The side yard, because the side yard setbacks are being applied not only to the building, but to various components of the building, like the porch and the deck. So it looks like a long list, but they're really the same subject matter. And what we see are 1.22 meter side yard setbacks that are, or 1.2 meter side yard setbacks. I guess some of them have double decimal places. That's a fairly substantial side yard setback, particularly in today's contemporary, more recent construction, and it's considered compatible. And we'll see a number of properties on Hounslow itself that are even at less than 1.2 meters. The building length and depth, I'll just deal with that on the site plan itself, relates to front and rear projections. There's a rear one-story projection that's centered pretty much to the rear wall. Otherwise, what I have highlighted in the inside of those building envelopes is that the building length really is 16.38 meters to 16.99 meters. So the projections that articulate the front and the rear elevations are really what drive the building length and depth variances from a technical perspective or a zoning interpretation perspective. We'll see that 385B to the east is very close in terms of the same building length. And if we go to slide number 2, please, staff, we'll see that several of the height variances and the platform variances on slide number 2, you'll see that the established grade is underground. So the basement, the midpoint of the basement is closest to established grade. Therefore, the basement is considered the first floor. And the first floor is the second floor, and the third floor is the second, is the actual second floor. The wall height really is to the main, a front projection. It's a small sloped roof. And you'll see that on slide number 2. I don't see it on the WebEx, but I'll see it on slide number 2 of my presentation drawings. Subject to any questions, I submit that the application does satisfy all of the consent criteria and the minor variance tests, and there's no unacceptable adverse impact. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you. Just a couple clarifying questions for you. If we can just pull up the diagram that you submitted with the lot frontages on there. So just take us through this. You've got 2 existing lots you're looking to sever into 3. What are the 3 widths of the 3 lots, the 3 frontages?
Going from left to right, so that's west to east, is 10.77 meters.
Thank you.
Then 12.19 meters and 12.19 meters.
Okay. And directly adjacent at 345 A and B, those lot widths you said were less than 12.19. Is that the case?
Yes, and just I don't mean to be rude or anything, Mr. Chairman. I know it's hard to read those numbers, but that's 385B and 385A.
Oh, thank you for
9.9 meters and lot.
9.9 meters. Okay.
Correct.
And lastly, directly across the street, you've highlighted 382 and 384. Do you know those frontages?
Yes, sir. They are 382 and 384. They are 12 point, yeah, they're both 12.5 meters.
Okay, so just a little bit more than what's been requested there. Okay, those are my questions. Ask my members if they have any questions for you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have 2 questions. One is, I just have to ask this, why not divide the total lot frontage by 3 and come up with 11.72 per lot? Why the substandard 10-meter one?
Good question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. And it is it's an excellent question, because that is the common default that would happen if you're going 2 into 3. But in this instance, what is being taken into account are the city trees that are located in the boulevard that are being aimed to be protected. And so that means that the response is in balancing all of these various items. The response was to create the two 12.19 meters and the one 10.77 meters.
Thank you. And then the other question is the lots to the immediate, I think it's east, that are the smaller lots, that how were they approved?
They were approved, just bear with me, it's on another screen, a 2004 severance.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, are we ready to take this matter into committee? Yes? Okay. All right, let's take this into committee for a decision. Any comment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. I think the comment that I have to share here is I understand that there are some lots, similar sizes like that were approved, and it was back in 2003 and 2004. But it seems like the neighborhood itself is not considered to be in transition. And that being said, is because of like those few lots, the smaller numbers actually were approved way before, and the neighborhood is not in that transition. So this is the comment that I wanted to add, and I think yes, it's mostly about like a determination of the decision or something. It's to be influenced by something that we call like the most frequently occurring form of development in the neighborhood. So that is my comment.
I'm struggling with this one because I look at the block pattern and you know, on a lot of streets you'll see a very consistent frontage, and I do recognize that this, like Hounslow in particular, the lot frontages do vary. There's a couple of lots that have not been severed recently. They have houses on them that appear to have been there for at least 50 years. And I do recognize that, you know, with the planning rationale that was provided by the agent, there's a number of lots that are under I think the 12.9 is kind of where he had it, including the one directly across the street. I note that, you know, 382 is a older home on a smaller lot. 384 is a newer home on a same smaller lot. I did ask, you know, think that we were looking at, it was about 12.5 on those. How much that off is a 12.2 versus, I guess, our 10.7. I did like the response, so with respect to the reason for the reduced lot, I think it's important for official plan to respond to things like our urban canopy. Being able to retain some existing trees, I think, is a good reason to perhaps grant a little bit of leniency on that width, but those are my thoughts.
Through Mr. Chair, I somewhat agree with you, but I am, with a negative planning staff report and no direction from staff, like no policy structure for subdividing these lots to this extent. Maybe that's something that needs to be considered, but we don't have that. And I don't think just because there's two smaller lots next door is justification for subdividing these. I think I have trouble uncoupling the consent from the variances because the variances, I think, are significant for each house. And it says to me, well, if you're going to create these smaller lots, but you need 18 variances in order to build a house on it, then I have a concern with that. So maybe I don't have as much concern with the consent as I do with the variances. Those are my thoughts right now, especially the height of the side main walls and the main walls and the overall height. I just don't see the justification for it. I know it has an integral garage and that usually requires some sort of height adjustment, but I'm not really buying it. And then we have the main pedestrian entrance as well, raised. You know, it's sort of you're creating a new building form by having the smaller lots, and you're squeezing a big house onto that lot. I'm just not sure that's appropriate.
Okay, fair enough. Any other comments or perhaps a motion?
I guess I'll chime in for 30 seconds and put my 2 cents forward. There are a few items I struggle with, but by and large, I'm leaning towards approval, because when I look at some of these variances, there's 18 of them. There's quite a few, and they're driven by the fact that we're subdividing this into undersized lots. Numerically, it's not something that we haven't seen on many other applications in the past, and I don't think it'll have an overall huge effect. And the lots, while undersized, are not terribly undersized in my opinion, and so when I look at it on the whole and I set aside some of the other more hard facts in terms of the numbers on some of these, and I think about what the impact is going to be on the community and the street, I don't see it being that great, and that the housing stock will be improved and is in keeping with what's happening along the roadway with tear down and future development. So that's my 2 cents on the subject.
Okay. Maybe a motion. Mr.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. Given the comments from my colleagues, and I think I'm forwarding a motion to refuse this application. I believe it does not satisfy the consent criteria under Section 5124 of the Planning Act, and I do not think the variances as well do not meet the 4 test for minor variances. The explanation was given in terms of the consent for Sievert, the size of it, given it's not in the transitioning. Also, on top of that, the variances are not going to be, the variances are significant, in my opinion, for that type of, for this type of applications. So that is my motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, we have a second to the motion. All in favor? Okay, the motion fails. We've got 2 opposed.
Mr. Chair, who was opposed?
Yeah, Mr. Bartolo, Mr. Allison, and Mr. Oh. And your reason for abstaining?
Can the member please speak into the mic?
I wanted to go for the refusal, given the reasons that my colleague has put forward. At the same time, when I look at the overall application and the explanation provided by the applicant, it seems they've done most of the work. Yeah, it's true. I do have some issues with the overall neighborhood, the change that this application will be bringing to the neighborhood. At the same time, I have difficulties. That is why I was refraining from making. I have difficulties getting to a refusal, straight refusals on this application.
We cannot, I won't be able to vote then.
Mr. Chair, through you, is there any way Member Cubo can come to a level of comfort that we can get a vote from him?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think I will go with my friend. I will go with the refusal.
Okay, let's go back. So let's just for clarification's sake, we had a motion on the floor by Mr. Fazeli to refuse the application. That was seconded by Ms. Casson. I'm going to ask for a vote on that motion again as being put forth. So all in favor? Okay, opposed? It's Mr. Allison, Mr. Bartolo. So the motion carries. The application is refused. Okay, moving on to item number 2. (336) Glen Park Avenue. The purpose of the application is to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 residential lots and build 2 detached dwellings. In order to facilitate that consent, there are a number of variances that would be required, including east and west side yard setback, east and west side yard setback for a porch and canopy, east and west side yard setback for a deck, rear deck projection, lot area, lot frontage, lot coverage, eave projection, and side main wall height. On file, I have material from the applicant, a staff report from community planning requesting some modifications, email from Heritage, memo from Transportation, an email from the TRCA, an email from Metrolinx, a memo from Urban Forestry, and a letter of objection from 340 Glen Park Avenue. Can we have the agent with us?
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Eddie Perez, designer of this project. We're at 327 Rogers Road. If you like, I can go through the changes that we made as planning's request. You want me to do part 1 first and then part 2 second?
Yes, please take us through the modifications. Let's pull up the public notice.
Okay, we'll go to item number 2. Instead of 0.48, we're now providing 0.55. Item number 3, instead of 0.48, we're providing 0.55. Item number 4, instead of 47, we're providing 0.55. And then also item number 10 has been deleted completely, so we have no more eaves variance. That's for part 1. Then I'll go through part 2. Part 2, number 1 is 0.55 instead of 0.47. Number 3 is 0.55 instead of 0.48, sorry. Number 4, 0.55 instead of 0.48. Number 5, 0.55 instead of 0.47. And also, oh yeah, I forgot 1 second. Then item number 10, instead of 41.01, we have 40.2 for the lot coverage. And then item number 11 is also eliminated. And I'll go back to the part 1. The coverage went from 41.05 to 40.6.
Which variance number is that?
For which part of me?
The lot
part
coverage?
1 is number 10.
Number 10?
Yes, lot coverage.
Okay. On the first part.
First one.
But
Yeah.
part 2, number 10's amended. Is there any updated drawings or site plan to reflect these changes?
We did the drawings that we have them. I sent them in for the zoning notice, and that's where I got all the correct numbers. So I do have it, but didn't have time to send in the items. But we are okay with what planning is requesting, and we have no objections. And that's the drawings that we're gonna present to the building department when we're ready to apply. And also, we have to get a zoning certificate as per the changes that we made, so we're 100% okay with the proposal that planning has requested. And then the side yards is, for that is only on the, in between the two houses. On the two outside side yards pertaining to the two neighbors, we actually left the 1.2 meters, which is very common in the area. The owner to one side has 1.2 on his fully detached house. And I have attached a lot of pictures there with houses that were built in similar as these ones on 50-foot lots. If you want, you can put up the presentation that I prepared with the houses and the decisions in the area. That one's also just single house, but it has a side yard of smaller than ours, 0.5. And then those two were also built with side yards in between less than ours. They're 0.445. Now we have 0.55. So it is common in the area, and when we designed the house, we designed it so that it would keep in coming with the rest of the houses in the area. So we feel that our proposal that we put before you meets the 4 tests and is very common in the area, and is a good development for the land as per se. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about the block pattern for a second. So we've got a lot of frontage being proposed on both parts of 7.62 meters. Do you have any examples? I might ask some of the precedents that you pulled up. Do you happen to know what those lot widths are? Or are there any other ones that you might point out that are similar in nature to the 7.62 meter frontage being proposed here?
Yeah, I put the decisions also in that demonstration that I have. There's a few decisions there, and all of those were if you scroll down, they were all at 7.62. The ones that you see, the two houses, they're all 7.62 lots.
Okay, and the addresses?
So, the address is okay. We have 322 and 324. I don't have the picture for those, but those ones are also as well 7.62. Let me bring up the drawings here, the pictures that I have here, and the decisions, and I'll let you know which ones.
Okay, yeah, take a minute. Okay.
Yeah, one sec.
I mean, it seems with I'll just bring up 322 as an example. It seems like it's out as an existing lot. It's not something that was severed, but as an existing lot within the area, it was 7.62.
I have it in front of me now. 400 and 402 Glen Park was severed into 25-foot lots. 895 and 897 Glen Cairn was also split into 2 lots. 968, and those two were also split into 2 lots.
Okay.
And then this 973 also was split into 2 lots. Glen Cairn 983 was also split into 2 lots, and Glen Cairn as well. So there is a lot of precedence of lots being split into 25-foot lots. And going forward, as you know, the city is needing more housing, and there's going to be a lot more moving forward, as you will see. And also, planning department had no issue with the severance of this lot. The only issue they had was in between the 2 lots. They wanted us to get rid of that overhang variance, and we did so. So I feel that what we did, it meets the 4 tests, and it's in coming with the area. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. Okay, seeing as there's no questions, let's take this matter into committee for decision. Well, we do have another speaker. I apologize. Please come on down, state your name and address for us.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Joseph Ragusa. I live at 340 Glen Park Avenue, which is immediately west and adjacent to 336 Glen Park, the subject site. I'm joined today by some of my neighbors, including the owners of 332 Glen Park, adjacent to and immediate on the east side of the subject property, the owner of the property right across the street from the subject property, and the owners of the property 2 houses west of me on the north side of Glen Park. We'll beg your forgiveness. Not everyone was familiar with the process of registering ahead of time, but I think if you were to let them speak or ask them, they would all tell you that they are all opposed to this application. I oppose the proposed severance and development of the subject site for 2 new detached duplexes that are totally out of character with my neighborhood and involve variances to the zoning bylaw that will have a negative impact on our properties. I believe the applications are in contradiction of the city's official plan, do not meet the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, involve variances that are a major departure from the regulations, and are not appropriate for the development of the property. Properties on the north side of Glen Park Avenue between Capitol and Danesbury, where we are generally characterized by 50-foot or 15-meter frontage lots and lot areas of over 6,000 square feet or 550 square meters with detached dwellings. They're all single family. The existing zoning regulations for minimum lot frontage and lot area reflect this fundamental characteristic for our block. There are no other lots in the block that don't meet these standards. The proposal for 336 Glen Park would set a precedent for the block by allowing a set of built forms that are totally inappropriate for the established built form character of this part of my neighborhood. The variances with regard to minimum lot area and lot frontages are below the minimum requirements of the zoning bylaw and by anyone's interpretation are not a minor deviation from those standards. Given the narrowness of the proposed houses or duplexes, the design will result in 2 house forms that are only 3 feet, 1.5 feet from each building to the new common lot line setback from each other, and result in setbacks to my property and my neighbor's property at 332 of 4 feet instead of the required 6 feet. I personally currently have windows facing the proposed new dwelling identified as Part 2, which will have major room windows on the main floor and second floor. Further, the design of the rear portion of the proposed building will go beyond my current back wall and provide a major view of a privacy wall from the proposed second floor rear deck that has a floor level over 7 feet above grade. In fact, the design on the narrow lots require built-in garages which push the first floor to a much higher level from grade compared to the other houses developed on this side of our street on Glen Park. The rear elevation appears to be a 3-story structure with a walkout basement below the garage level. And in fact, in your planning report, the proposed units are described as being 3-story units. We have no 3-story houses on Glen Park Avenue. Both the garage level and the basement level have combined heights of over 13 feet before the quote-unquote first floor level. All of these are very uncharacteristic of our area. The official plan sets out development criteria in Chapter 4. It is clear that any new development, quote, will respect and reinforce the existing physical character of each geographic neighborhood, end of quote. This includes prevailing size and configuration of lots, prevailing massing, scale, density of nearby properties, prevailing building types, prevailing location, design and elevations relative to the grade of driveways and garages, prevailing setbacks of buildings, and prevailing patterns of rear and side yard setbacks. The proposed developments will result in 2 driveways instead of 1 and change the front yard landscaping relationship and opportunities for new trees in the front yard. The variances proposed for each of the new lots as they pertain to side yard setbacks, minimum lot area, minimum lot frontage, the rear deck projections, and the maximum lot coverages are both individually and collectively not minor and do not follow the intent of the official plan policies noted in Chapter 4 for new development in established neighborhoods. I'm not against development of the subject site if it were to be developed in a form more consistent, more characteristic of our block, and would be able to adhere to the intended policies of the official plan and regulations of the zoning bylaw. The severance of the site for 2 detached dwellings breaches both the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, results in variances that are substantial in both numeric and impact terms, and therefore is an inappropriate development for this site. I, and on behalf of my neighbors, would request that the Committee of Adjustment refuse these applications as they do not meet the tests of the Planning Act for both variances and consent in this context and do not represent good planning. In the time I have left, let me address some of the properties that the previous speaker spoke to. I will tell you that 397 and 399 Glen Park are on the south side of our street and are no less than 200 meters west of the subject property and only 100 meters away from Dufferin. 324 Glen Park, yes, on a 25-foot lot. That house was built in 1926, at grade, no garage. It's not higher than any of the neighboring houses, and it's actually quite modest. It's a story and a half. 322, smaller lot, newer house, sloped driveway, not so high, 2 stories, not 3, and it's not higher than the neighboring 2-story houses. And since the previous speaker mentioned Glen Cairn, which is 1 street south, Glen Grove, 1 street north, is characterized entirely by 57-foot lots, to give you a greater sense of what kind of neighborhood we live in. And I would just reference finally, on the previous matter, Member Cassin's remarks that when you ask for a severance and you need all kinds of variances to jam a big house on a smaller lot, it's problematic. We agree entirely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's take it back to the agent for a response.
Yeah, hi, I was listening to what the gentleman had to say. First item, we don't have any length or depth variance for the dwellings. And we did take in consideration both neighbors because we left 1.2 meters on those sides on coming with both of those houses. In between the houses, as you see on those pictures, when you do a severance, it's common to just leave the 0.55 meters. And if you put the picture of my front elevation, if you put it on the screen, and then you can see in comparison to the pictures that I presented for evidence, you can see that the house is similar. It's got a garage and then it has the floors above it. Our designs are exactly the same as those. Even the one that's fully detached, similar to our house as well. So when we did these houses, we did it in consideration with the neighbors on both sides, and pertaining to the driveways, transportation does not have any issues with proposing 2 smaller driveways instead of 1 big one. If you were to build a big house on this property, side yards would be the same on the neighbors. The impact on the neighbor would be exactly the same. The impact on both neighbors is very minimal, and I feel that what we're presenting is a good build for this area. And if you can put those pictures up, you'll see all the houses are the same as our front elevation. We took everything in consideration when we were doing the drawings, and we try to make it in keep with the neighborhood. So I feel what we're proposing is very good for the area, and I feel that it meets the 4 tests. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have any questions? Okay, no questions. Okay, let's take this matter into committee for a brief discussion and hopefully decision. Yes, Ms. Cassin.
I will start the conversation, Mr. Chair. I have to be consistent on this application as I was on the previous one. Although I'm not as offended as by the variances on this application. There's not quite as many. But I think that this proposed development is out of character with this block. And as I said in the previous application, if the city decides that you know, subdivision of lots of, you know, 15-meter lots, which are very standard in the city of Toronto, is appropriate into 2 lots, then that would be a different, if we had policy direction for something like that, but we don't. And I just, despite the planning staff report not having a concern with it, I think this will change the character of the whole street, and I don't really see that it's, the severance is appropriate. I don't think it meets the test of the official plan. And I know there are some smaller lots within the larger area, as the applicant stated, but I just don't think, you know, this neighborhood is pretty stable with 50-foot frontages and 15 meters, and I can't support the consent, so.
Okay.
I can put forward my quick opinion there, Mr. Chair. I would, unlike the previous application, I would tend to agree with Ms. Cassens on this one. More so, I can get past some of these variances for height and setback, but it's a 50% reduction in the prevailing, in the lot size in an area that is largely stable, as you mentioned. So I think that the respondent there had some very good arguments and some pretty solid, so I actually have to commend him on making a solid planning rationale argument against this application. I tend to agree with his arguments on some of those items, because what has me hung up is the lot frontage size in comparison to what's going on in the neighborhood. I'm not so much concerned about the balance of the items, but those ones I would side with Ms. Cassens on.
Okay. We just confirm, what is the as of right, or the requirement lot frontage?
15 meters.
15, okay.
And lot area 550 square meters.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, if there's no other comments, perhaps a motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to make a motion for refusal of this application. I don't think that it meets, number one, I don't think that the consent meets the tests under Section 51 of the Planning Act, and I don't think that the proposed variances are appropriate for the site. I think that they don't meet the intent of the official plan and the zoning, and I don't think it's appropriate for the site.
Okay, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Fazeli, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Motion carries. The application is refused. All right, let's move on to item number 3. Actually, before we move on to number 3, should ask, do we need a 5-minute relief break? Yes? Okay, let's take 5. We'll return just before 11:30 this morning with item number 3.
Item number 10 is scheduled, item 10 is scheduled for morning session. Number 12 is still morning session. One, two, three, four, five, six. No, they'll finish the morning session. So they'll do all the files in the morning session once it's completed, and they'll break for lunch, and they'll come back to the afternoon session. So they're here, at least, there's still 6 items, so depending on how many people are going to speak to each item, you're looking at an hour, maybe 2 hours, depends on how you can speak. 12 times.
All right, we are back with item number 3, 125 McGillivray Avenue. The application is a consent application to sever the property into 2 residential lots and construct 2 new dwellings. To facilitate that, there are some variances, including east and west side yard setbacks, east and west side yard setback for a front porch canopy, building length, lot coverage, lot area, and lot frontage.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt. Before we commence with this item, can I just kindly remind the staff members to please speak into your microphone? There are some members out in virtual world that are having trouble hearing what the members are saying.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Also, just while we're on that, yeah, make sure everybody has their camera on. Great. Okay. So just to continue with this file, we've got material from the applicant, a staff report from community planning recommending refusal, a memo from engineering and construction services, memo from urban forestry, and letters of objection from 123 and 127 McGillivray Avenue. Let's get the agent with us.
I am here, sir.
Good morning. Your name and address, please.
Good morning. My name is Adrian Latavsky, and my planning firm is Johnston Latavsky Limited. Our address is 235 Lakeshore Road East in Oakville.
Okay, thank you. All right. We're going to require a presentation on this. Would ask if you can address some of the comments, specifically the comments related in the report from community planning. It might be helpful if you can address that for us. Let's get the clock up. As well as a report
Before we
from
start,
TRCA.
Arthur.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Before we start the clock there, thank you. I do see that you have our planning letter on screen, and I am grateful for that. I hope you all had an opportunity to read it. However, we did submit a small slide presentation just yesterday, and I would ask if you're able to please put that on the screen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we require all presentation material to be provided a week in advance. Oh, do we have it? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right. We have it up. I'm just going to put this out there, but I'm going to allow it, but I just note that with limitation, if I see stuff that is kind of materially different or kind of verging in terms of planning rationale from what's been provided, I might interject. I want to ensure that there's fairness, because I do see that there is some opposition to this, and I want to make sure that all parties have had the chance to review the material that is being presented. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll let you continue at this time with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and understood, and thank you for the clarification. So just presenting here, the property in question is, as mentioned, is 125 McGillivray, which is located southeast of the 401 corridor and Bathurst. And what is before you today are consent application to sever the lot into 2 different lots and to permit new single-family dwellings on each of the new lots. Thank you for changing the slide, and there's a site plan of what is proposed here today. We do note that this is a well-established neighborhood, but that is one that is also experiencing considerable reinvestment, both in terms of new homes on single lots, as well as projects such as this one. There are several examples, which I'd be happy to go through, which also will assist me to respond to staff's concerns. In terms of the planning regime, the property is designated neighborhood, and the zoning is RD under 569-2013. So we are aware of the staff reports. You mentioned forestry, ECS, and planning. We are aware of planning's recommendation to refuse and will respond to that. We're also aware of forestry's suggested conditions, which are indeed very standard for this kind of application. We have no comment or concern about what forestry has put forward. And we also note that ECS has expressed no objection. In terms of the consent, we have reviewed the 51 sub 24 tests under the Planning Act. Those are outlined in our letter, and I won't go through them in detail. I'll just kind of hit the high points. I will note that one of the tests is, does it satisfy the provincial interest? And I would suggest that yes, indeed it does, in terms of providing what is perhaps the most important provincial interest, most recently noted in recent changes to the Planning Act and the new PPS, which is to provide additional housing, preferably in situations like this, through the kind of gentle density that we're proposing here. We are proposing 2 new single-family homes, each of which would have a unit in the basement. So it's just the kind of intensification that I suggest the city and the province is looking for. We have reviewed it, and in our opinion, it does indeed conform to the official plan and the various criteria set out in that. And there are variances that I will speak to, and I will, of course, speak to the test that it does indeed meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan. We've also looked at the adjacent subdivision, which is a 51 sub 24 test. Does it conform to, or is it consistent with the general law pattern in the neighborhood? And I suggest to you that it is. There are indeed a number of examples within the surrounding neighborhood of very similar, if not nearly identical applications that have indeed been approved. Key to this is the proposed frontage and lot area. I do understand that these are probably the core of staff's concerns, and so I would indeed like to talk to that in particular. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, could you please forward to the last slide? Thank you very much. So now, hopefully this does look like there's a lot of information there, but and these are statistics that we gathered in preparing for the application, and this isn't really new information. To your point, Mr. Chair, we have offered essentially the same analysis in our rationale letters. That is on file. I just thought I'd repackage it for this presentation here. And now what we have here is our study area, the dashed outline there. Now, I do note that we were very careful to only look at those properties within the study area that are within the same zone, so that it wasn't apples to apples comparison. And what we have marked are the various consent applications, much like this one, that have indeed been approved. And to the right, we give you, much more specific information. We list the specific addresses, as well as the approved frontage and the approved lot area. Now, we've color-coded it as well, because we note that what we see there, where we note, is it a consent, and we say yes. If it's green, what that suggests is that those are applications that were approved by the committee. If the yes there is labeled red, it would mean that the committee in fact refused it, but then we have a slightly orange color to the left, which indicates that that application was ultimately appealed either to the OLT or to TLAB and was ultimately approved. And so we can see that there are indeed many examples of that, some of which here are almost identical to our proposal. Okay. And so moving ahead, I don't want to waste your time. I have reviewed the minor variance tests, and we've given a detailed response to those in our letter. And I am also, I think I, in fact, responded to staff's key concern. Their report really did focus on the consent, and their recommendation to refuse was based on the lot frontage and lot area proposed. But I suggest to you, in their analysis, they looked at a far, far more focused, far smaller area and didn't take what I would suggest would be a more appropriate, broader look at the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
I realize that I am now speaking over time, so I'm here to answer questions.
Yeah, I have a question just as a follow-up. So thank you for the planning rationale, and I do see, so the area that you've defined in the map that's on the screen there. Is that representative of the broader or the immediate context?
Well, I would suggest that's the broader context there. We have in the immediate context, right along McGillivray, just to the east is the address 97 McGillivray. And that is a very similar proposal indeed. In fact, I would suggest pretty much identical to what is before you today.
Okay.
And we have indeed looked at both the immediate and broader context in our opinion stands.
Okay. Any further questions right now? Okay, we were going to come back to this. We do have another speaker, Mr. Sugar. Have him online?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, committee, for having me. Should I just start, give you my address?
Yes, your name, address,
Perfect.
And the clock is up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Martin Sugar. I reside at 123 McGillivray, directly adjacent to the lot that is being asked to be subdivided. So I was going to speak about a couple of things. One is the actual subdivision itself, as well as the variances that have been requested. And of course, on the screen now is the letter that I submitted. I've also been asked to speak on behalf of the neighbor's house, 127 McGillivray, because they are unable to attend. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but we did submit a letter that also speaks to their concerns. So first, I'd like to actually address the first mention of this is normal for the neighborhood, or what the gentleman just had up on the screen. This street, I've lived here for over 10 years, is a street of 40 and 50-foot lots only. We have seen a lot of development over the last 10 years, and I am a big supporter of development to take place. However, we have only seen on the actual street one lot be subdivided a few years ago. It was a family that divided it for themselves, for parents and child to live in two separate residences. It was the first time it was ever done, and I actually sought feedback from the neighbors in my letter that I submitted. Because while they were not happy with the approval originally, now living with this change has led to even more concerns, and of course led to me being concerned with this change. So there is 0 houses on this block that are below 40-foot lots. We actually have a lot on our quarter that is 59 feet wide. So this would be a huge variance from what is currently acceptable on the lot. So my first concern is the side setback. Reducing the setback on my lot to 1 meter from the required 1.8 meters is certainly a concern for a multitude of reasons, for privacy, proximity, and what has been raised in the house that was built down the street is mechanical. Because these houses are so closely built to each other, the mechanical components are then mounted high on the side of the houses, directly at the windows of the residing houses. So I would have a potential air conditioning unit and other equipment basically at my window height, because of course with such limited setback, you can't put the mechanicals on the ground. So this is a concern that's been raised by my neighbors since they've now had to live through this. But as I mentioned, there is only one house on 123. And even in the entire graph that the gentleman just showed, there's hundreds of houses there. Only 13 lots have been approved to be subdivided. The other concern I have is request number 4, which is to divide a 50 meter square lot down to 266. This would be the smallest lot at 7.62 meters on the street. There are no houses or lots other than the 2 that he mentions out of 128 houses that are smaller than 12.2 or 18 meters wide. So again, this just does not align with what the lots look like or what the density of the neighborhood looks like. So again, brought up some issues in my letter around insufficient space for landscape and green area, because they've also asked to build over 33% above what the maximum coverage allowable is. And my concern there is, where does the water go? We are dealing, of course, as everyone knows, with water management issues in the city with rainstorms. When you start covering up 33% more softscape, I'm concerned that that water is now going to end up in my basement because there won't be the softscape to meet the requirement.
Okay.
The
Final
lot
words?
length lot length is the other issue. They would like to build well beyond the proximity of all of the other houses on the street. Again, impacting privacy concerns, viewing into my backyard and all of the things that we've done to try to keep, I personally live in a 50-foot lot. The neighbor's house to the west is also the same size. All of the lots in this block, there is not a single one that is below 40 feet. And as I mentioned, the largest one is 59. So this just does not seem to match the neighborhood. And then I also have concerns that if for any reason this is approved, which I'm hoping it's not, because they want to build close to the lot lines, are they going to do adequate shoring and other things that need to be done to ensure that my foundation and my neighbors' foundations are not impacted by, of course, building a very big hole in the ground to build two different houses. So again, I am not a professional. I am not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but I have been a long-term resident of the neighborhood, and the general consensus is that this does not meet what the rest of the houses look like. There is, as I mentioned, of 128 houses, there are only 2 of these lots, and those were just recently done.
Okay.
But other than that, every year we see about 8 houses built on the street. None have been subdivided.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, no questions. Let's take it back to the applicant. I want to give him an opportunity to rebut those comments that were raised by the immediate neighbor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And don't get me wrong, I can certainly understand the concerns of the neighbor, for that matter, of any neighbor when change is proposed right next door to them. I can appreciate that. I can reply at least to some of the specific concerns expressed. I'll try to touch on all of them here. There was a concern about setbacks, and I can note that what is proposed is a 1 meter setback on each of the outside side yards there, whereas the bylaw does require 1.8. So the difference is really only about 80 centimeters. In terms of equipment, certainly that can be designed and taken care of during the building process. The equipment, I can't speak to that. I'm sure there are other areas where air conditioning units can go. That is still something that can be addressed at the building stage. I can say that such similar variances are quite common in my own experience, whether it's in this neighborhood or other similar neighborhoods. In terms of the water concern, once again, I hear the neighbor's concern. It is understandable why one might think that, but having said that, I can say that it is the requirement of every homeowner, particularly during renovations like this, to have all drainage flow out to the street. And that must be shown and approved during the building permit stage. In terms of the building length, I do note that there are similar building lengths that have been approved throughout the neighborhood within our same study area. I point again to 97 McGillivray, which proposes almost the identical building length. They were approved at 18.87 meters, whereas we were proposing 18.69. It is a difference of just about, I'd say, 1.5 meters or so over the bylaw requirement. I don't, in my opinion at least, while I understand the neighbor's comment, I don't believe it's not in keeping with the bylaw's intent. In terms of, I'm just looking at my notes here, sir. I think in terms of the lot size and area and the fact that the immediate context, again, I can appreciate that, but I do believe that neighborhoods like these are indeed seeing some transition. This kind of intensification is certainly encouraged at the provincial level, and even to some extent at the city level through the encouragement of additional units within neighborhoods, so long as they can, fit in with the area. And while I appreciate the neighbor's comments, in my opinion, I believe it does indeed satisfy all the bylaw, the 4 tests of the Planning Act, rather. We're only dealing with 6 variances all told for each of the new lots. They are mirror images of the others, so the variances are the same on each lot. And again, I just lean on the analysis provided in my letter. That's a quick review. I am, of course, happy to answer any other questions which you or the neighbor may have.
Thank you. I've got a question with respect to 97 McGillivray. It came up in the planning rationale. Do you know what the lot frontage is on both of those, either one or both of those properties? 97 and
immediately next door?
97A?
Oh, 97 and 97A, it is the exact same frontage we were requesting. They were approved at 7.62 meters for each of the new lots.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I'm just looking at your diagram. There's a property approved at Committee of Adjustment. You've highlighted on Joycey, one block, actually 2 blocks south of the subject property. Could you provide what the lot frontage there is?
Sure, of course. Now, just let me look it up in my notes.
It might be 362.
362 Joycey, yes. That was a 2020 approval that was approved by the committee. It did not have, it was not through appeal. And the approved frontage was 7.77 meters for each of the new lots. And the approved lot area was 272.3 square meters for each of the new lots. And that compares to the lots that we're proposing at 266.32 square meters. So pretty close.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any further questions? No. Okay, thank you. Let's take this matter into committee. Yes, Ms. Casson.
Mr. Chair, I will start off the conversation as I have with the 2 previous applications. I think, first of all, the applicant did a very good had a good presentation package, and I thank him for that in terms of the amount of information available. I am, again, not, with this application, not convinced that it meets the tests under Section 5124 of the Planning Act for severance. I don't believe this application is within the intent of the official plan. There's parts of it that are in terms of increasing housing, but I think that the proposed lot fabric, frontage and area are not consistent with the official plan. I don't think that the minor variances are appropriate either in terms of lot frontage. I don't think that half the required lot size and frontage and area are appropriate without some other further policy context from the city to support something like this. Yes, multiple units are permitted within existing structures that meet the zoning bylaw, so I don't think this qualifies. I don't think it's close. My personal opinion, of course, but I just don't think that it is meeting the tests that are required, and I would agree with the comments in the planning staff report on that.
Okay. Any other comments? Motion?
I would be happy to put a motion forward for refusal of this application for the reasons I stated previously. I don't think it meets the requirements for consent under Section 5124 of the Planning Act, and I don't think the variances, although the variances are not that egregious, I think that the lot frontage and area are not consistent with the zoning bylaw. I don't think they're minor in nature, and I don't think it's appropriate for the area in this context.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I second that.
Second by Mr. Vizzelli. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Motion carries. The application is refused. Okay, item number 4, 25 Old York Mills Road. The purpose of the application is a proposed interior alteration to legalize 2 dwelling units. One variance before us related to the number of dwelling units in combination with the existing use. On file, I've got material from the applicant, a memo from TRCA recommending deferral or refusal, as well as a memo from Urban Forestry. We have the applicant with us.
Yes.
Good morning.
My name is Joe. Hello. Good morning. My name is Joe Battaglia. I'm the architect. I think I can't see any reason why the TRCA, for instance, would have any objection to this because we're not touching anything. It's all internal to the building. So all it is an additional unit for the priest. There's two priests, so each priest would like to have their own unit. I don't think that's unusual, and if there are any questions, I'd be willing to answer.
Okay, fair enough. You have any questions at this time?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I've just heard the applicant talking about the TRCA comments. You're mentioning that it is. Are you saying that what they are referring to, which mentions that the proposal involves a 10-meter setbacks from the flood hazard? So what rationale can you provide to us that they can go against what TRCA is indicating to us in their report?
Well, this is an existing building. It's been like that for I can't tell you how long, but nevertheless, it's been there for quite a long time. As I said before, we are not planning to do any exterior increases to the building. It's all internal. So hence I find it hard to believe that they would even be required to make any comments to that effect, because it is what it is. It's been there. If the variance, if there's a variance in the setback, if it's an existing building, it's not as if you can tear down the building and set it back. It's been there for a long time. It's a church, so I don't understand. I find it really hard to understand why they would even comment on that. Maybe someone is not aware of the actual situation of this thing. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Does that satisfy your
Yes,
question?
I understand the condition that's existing. The report mentioned that, and I think probably when they write such reports, sometimes like they go by the policies that they have to follow through those, but I'm not sure if they are taking into the consideration that it's an existing condition. That's why they do not provide any comments on that. But thanks for explaining that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I had similar question myself with respect to the fact that it is existing. What is the question I had for TRCA is what's the impact here to the conversion of the dwelling unit, but don't see anything in their report that addresses that specifically. Any other questions?
I have one question, and I'll also comment on it. From my experience, the reason that TRCA would make a comment like this is not to further the impact on residential uses in a building, like in terms of flood impact. So they don't want to make it worse. If it permits one unit and it's existing, fair, but if someone's trying to create more units, you know. But my question to the applicant is, have you had a conversation with TRCA, or you haven't had the opportunity yet?
No, we haven't talked to them. We were kind of shocked that they would even make such a comment, being that we're not altering the exterior of the building to have any connection with the setback, and would have no impact on flooding or anything like that, because it's all internal to the building. It would be very difficult for me to try to see if there's any reason for it to impact on the flood plain and stuff like that. That's why, obviously, we were not expecting something like this.
Can I ask, what is the current use of the space?
I think it's some sort of meeting room.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
And is it in the basement?
Last-
Is the proposed
on the
unit
ground
in?
floor.
Oh, ground floor, okay.
No, it's on the ground floor.
I don't have any, but. Okay. Okay, are there any other further questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm not sure if I got the last answer from the applicant. What is the purpose of the current use of the building?
I think you said it was meeting rooms. They were used as meeting rooms.
Thank you.
Meeting room at the church,
Thank
yeah.
you,
the
sir.
Mason room, meeting room. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I do see there is another interested party on my list, Mr. Elliott. Do we have him with us?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, staff have reached out. He does not wish to participate. He just wants to watch.
Okay, very good. All right, if there's no further questions, let's take this matter into committee. Yes, Mr.
There's
Bartolo.
no further comments there, Mr. Chair. I can put forward a motion.
Okay,
I think this is a relatively straightforward application. I don't see that adding one additional dwelling unit is going to impact a neighborhood. It's all within the existing square footage. There's no additions to the building. I have no concerns about the TRCA or the trees. Therefore, I'll put forward a motion to approve this application with no condition.
okay, do I have a seconder? Yes, second by Mr. Kaboo. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The application, motion carries, the application is approved. I realize, let's take a very, very short 5-minute relief break and resume in 5. Okay, we're back with item number 6, 16 McGillivray Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a new detached dwelling. Number of variances before us, including number of stories, rear platform area, front platform area, side exterior main wall heights, lot coverage, and platform encroachment into a rear yard setback. On file, have material from the applicant, as well as a memo from Urban Forestry and a staff report from Community Planning recommending modifications. Have our applicant, our agent, I should say, with us. Mr. Benkowski.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning,
Benkowski.
committee.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are all you?
Very good. Okay.
Jonathan Benkowski, 3012 Watton Avenue.
Thank you. All right. Just give us a moment here.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of changes to propose.
Okay.
And they are all reflected in a revised set of plans that are date stamped September 30th by the Committee of Adjustment. So the two changes, as per the public notice I would like to make, is a reduction of the main wall height from 9.42 meters to 8.75 meters. That is, again, as per the planning staff report that came out of discussions we had with them. The second request I would like to make, an alteration, is to alter variance number 6, which would go from an encroachment of 2.98 meters to 2.07 meters. I would also ask.
Sorry, just to go back there, which variance is that?
No, variance number 6 from the public notice.
Okay, very good. And the first
Again,
one,
that is
just
also
to clarify,
reflected in the revised set of plans.
yeah, just to clarify for everybody, the first modifications, variance number 4, a reduction from 9.42 to 8.79. Is that correct?
8.75, Mr.
8.75, even better. Okay. And then variance number 6.
From 2.98 to 2.07 meters.
Okay. Okay.
I would also ask the panel if this is meritorious to tie the approval to this revised set of plans that are dated September 30th. That, Mr. Chair and committee, we had extensive conversations with both adjacent neighbors to the east and the west, who actually also happen to be brothers. They asked us for 2 revisions that don't necessarily reflect or alter the variances, except for the rear yard encroachment. They requested we move the building forward 0.91 meters, which we had no problem with, which we were happy to oblige, as well as adding a privacy screen, as you would see reflected there on the site plan with the revision bubble around it. They were very fruitful conversations, and I believe they have not written any type of opposition, and I do not believe they are intending to speak today from the conversation that I had with them extensively over the past couple of weeks. It was actually very productive to have that conversation. Turning to the variances itself, you will notice kind of the elephant in the room, I guess you could say, is the proposed number of stories being 3. That, Mr. Chair and committee, is born out of the fact that this is almost a slab-on-grade dwelling. This has a very shallow basement that is dug down. I did include in my support material a quick little photo book just kind of showing the character of McGillivray that's there. Those dwellings in my photo book you would see there essentially mirror the look of what is being proposed before you today, especially the one on the first page. I believe it's one page. My apologies, especially on the second page, which is essentially right across the street from the subject property that mirrors the look with the flat roof, the garage, and the 2 floors of functional living above it. That, if we were to have excavated the basement further, the look of the dwelling and the impact from the streetscape would not change. We would just have eliminated 3 of the variances, in fact, which deal with the 3 stories as well as the 2 platforms. If we go to the floor plans itself, there are no platforms proposed on the 2nd floor. The 2 variance requests for the platform are born out of the actual functional 1st floor being considered the 2nd floor. So the 2 requests are for the front porch as well as the rear porch. Again, as we saw in the photo book, this is the typical new build look along the stretch of McGillivray. And I also think it's telling the lack of impact that there were no objections from the neighbors, even though, again, that first variance that jumps out of you is that request for a 3-story dwelling. I did, again, speak extensively with the adjacent neighbors, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee has if they have any.
I've got 2 follow-up questions for you. One is with respect to the variance for the front porch. Do you have any examples that could support a front porch of that proposed size?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, if I don't in terms of that size, but again, if we were to have dropped the basement so that was actually considered the functional basement, that would not be a variance. So in my mind, this is slightly technical in nature because that's actually considered the first floor. But again, if we had dropped the basement, there wouldn't be a variance for that front porch size. It's again, just because this is considered the second floor, again, which is that functional first floor.
Okay, and any specific reason to tie any approval to your new site plan? Any reason?
Yes, because again, the conversation I had with the neighbors was the agreement to move the house forward by 0.91 meters. That's not reflected in any variance. So it's just to ensure the conversation I had with the adjacent neighbors. I'm kind of keeping my agreement that we came to.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to ask if there's any questions at this time. No? Okay. So just to clarify then, on these new this new site plan that you submitted, the house is actually comes further forward.
Correct. It's pushed 0.91 meters closer to McGillivray than the one that was originally submitted. But we're not. That's not reflected in a variance itself because I mean, so Mr. Chair, what originally happened was when I was originally sent the plans, there were about 4 more variances because of some excavation that was done under the front porch, which considered it to be the main front wall. I proposed we eliminate those. What we did not do at that time was push the house forward that same 0.91 meters that was the excavated area. So in terms of the dwelling itself, all we did was take the excavated portion under the porch out, and now we've pushed the house forward 0.91 meters. But again, not reflected in a variance because we weren't overbuilding depth, building length, and we did not have a front yard setback issue. So it was merely just out of the conversations with the adjacent neighbors. And my clients were happy to agree to that.
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm going to express my reservation about tying it to a revised plan that has nothing to do with the variances.
Yeah,
if you're tying it to a plan, it should be related to help reinforce the variances that are approved. The applicant has made changes to variances 4 and 6, and that will be reflected in the decision. If you're solely tying it to facilitate an agreement between the neighbor and the applicant owner, I think that's different, but I'll leave that in your hands.
Mr. Chairman, it does alter the variance for the rear yard setback because that house did come forward 0.91. So there is an alteration to that variance that would enforce that.
Okay.
Right, because we reduce the encroachment.
What is that alteration at the rear then?
I don't see that
It was from
alteration to the rear.
2.98. It was variance number 6. So variance number 6 is the platform encroachment. We did reduce that, which reflects that 0.91 meters.
It's reflected in the changes that
reinforce-
he made in wording. I don't see the need to, in my opinion, I don't see the need to tie it to a plan because it's reflected in the changes that he made, which will be on the decision. He changed it to 2.07.
Yeah, I mean, the other aspect of this is there is a variance for front porch related to this front porch. And if the front porch is now being proposed to come more forward, maybe the as of right, but perhaps the impact might be a little different, as that the size of that porch is now closer to the street by 0.9 meters, if I understand.
Correct, 0.91.
Okay, but an as of right, at least with respect to the setback itself. Okay. Questions at this time? Comments? No? Okay, thank you. Just to confirm, we don't have any other speakers on this item? Okay, all right, let's take this into committee.
If there's no discussion, I'm ready for a motion there, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Having heard what the applicant said here, I'm in favor of the application as amended. I think it fits in with the character neighborhood. I don't see any negative impact. I don't see it being necessary to tie to the plans. If they've made a good faith agreement with their neighbors, that's up to them to keep that. So therefore, I'll put forward a motion to approve this application subject to the following revisions. Variance number 4 be reduced to 8.75 meters, and variance number 6 be reduced to 2.07 meters. And subject to the conditions of the urban forestry memo attached.
Yes, I do see number 2 and 3 in there. Okay, we've got a motion. Do I have a seconder? Okay, second by Mr. Kaboo. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The motion carries. The application as amended is approved. Okay, item number 7, address is number 11 KILLDEER Crescent. This is an application to construct a front and rear addition to an existing house with 2 requested variances, one for west side yard setback and the other for the east side yard setback. On file, I have material from the applicant as well as a letter of objection from number 9 KILLDEER Crescent. And we have our agent or applicant with us in person. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan James. I reside at 42 Belfair Avenue. My wife, Farida James, and I are the owners of 11 KILLDEER, which is the property that's the subject of this application. As I believe you know, we are proposing to renovate an existing house on the property. We plan to keep less than 50% of the existing structure. As part of the renovation project, with the new walls, or at least the new portion of the house that we're proposing to build, we plan to locate the walls 3 feet from the side lot lines, which is less than the minimum required side setback of 4 feet, which is why we're making this application. We believe that the application is consistent with the intent and purpose of the city bylaws, and we think it'll help preserve consistency among the houses in the neighborhood. We note that if the variance was declined, we believe have 2 options. One would be to comply with the bylaw fully, and we think that would result, or we know that would result in a house that is narrower and longer than any of the other houses in the neighborhood if we were to try to maximize our allowable area, which we would do. In particular, the south wall of our house, which is already planned to be further south than our neighbors' houses, would be even further south. As such, this isn't really an option for us. We think the design of the house would not be good. And so after consultations with city staff, we determined that the alternative to not getting this variance approved would be to preserve at least 50% of the house, which is a little more than what we're proposing to do now. And if we did that, we would get exemptions from the bylaw, and we could have the existing setbacks. The kind of perverse result there would be that we would be building wider than what we're requesting. We don't think that would be in the interest of our neighbors. We'd be moving closer to their homes. It would not be in our interest because it would limit access to the backyard, or at least access options to the backyard, particularly on the east side. So we think it's in the best interest of our neighbors and ourselves to have the variance approved. We believe it's minor, and we hope that the committee can see to approve it. I'm happy to answer any questions, and otherwise I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think it's the east side. It looks like you're, like I understand your intent is to extend the house back on more or less the same lines as it is.
Yes.
But it looks on the east side that you're actually improving it a little bit. Is that?
I'm not sure I follow. Currently there's a garage on the east side. It is about 1.5 feet from our eastern neighbor's lot line. We're proposing to move 3 feet from the eastern lot line.
Remove.
So we're going to remove the garage and then move the new wall,
Right.
3 feet as opposed to the 1.5
Okay.
that's currently.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that I understood the plans correctly, but I understand what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Fazeli?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the applicant could just address the objection letter that we have in front of us?
Certainly. So I don't know if we have the speaker on the line. I think he was going to listen in. I did manage to speak with him last night. The neighbors at 9 Kildare East were away for a while, so we just managed to connect with them last night. I think there's 2 issues. One is I don't think that they fully understood our application. If you've read the letter, it obviously seems that they expect it to be wider. And we tried to explain to them that actually it's going to be narrower than the current structure now. And I think they understood that. I don't want to speak for them, but I think they understood that. And then they had some concerns about a fireplace, and in particular, they're worried about where the exhaust is going to vent. And so what we explained to them was that at least the way the builders explained it to me, is the venting will occur through the top of the house, not on the side by their air conditioner. And so the builder's plan is to have a fireplace that will go up to the top and sort of out the roof area. So again, I think they understood that. I don't want to speak for them, but I think that they were okay with it. I think.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, do we have our neighbor with us? Is it Mr. McDonald? Great.
Sorry, you've gone mute on me. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Mr. McDonald?
I can hear you now, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yes, yes. It's Gary McDonald from 9 Kildare Crescent. So just, our qualification or our assurances, I guess, that we would be asking for. We did have a conversation with Alan last night, and that was, relatively productive because it helped explain some of the situations. But we were very unclear as to why there were variances being requested. So I just want to confirm sort of 2 things, and I think then we're in a position to remove our objection, if you will. The first one is that my understanding is because of the significant expansion of the footprint, that it's now considered a new build. So therefore, anything, if it's considered a new build, anything closer than 1.2 meters to the lot line is a variance. And the reason why that the variance request on the west side of the property is 0.75 meters is because the existing house, the existing structure, is 0.75 meters from the lot line. So therefore, you're not moving it. So if that is the case, and that's my understanding, then yes, of course, the existing wall is the existing wall. So that would be one thing, if I understand that correctly. The second point is the extension in the back. Wasn't clear from the plan, but talking to Alan, he said it was actually narrower by 15 centimeters, which means it's now, the extension is 0.9 meters from the lot line. Okay, fine, that's good. And then we had a query about the fireplace box or the fireplace bump out, and we just want to make sure that that does not extend to be within 50 centimeters of the lot line, which is my understanding of the bylaw. So, with some assurances on those 2 issues, then we would be fine.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I'm going to turn it back to our applicant here for a response.
Sure. I'm not entirely clear how to respond. I think, as I've mentioned, I spoke with Gary yesterday. We are making the rear of the house, the addition will be narrower. I guess I confirm that. And then with respect to the fireplace, we intend to comply with the bylaw and make sure it's not offside.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, let's move into committee and render you a decision. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move a motion for approval of this application. I think that the variances that are requested are minor in nature and basically allow the applicant to extend the existing house on the same sort of line, plane, whatever you want to call it, as the existing. And I think it's appropriate for the site and entirely within the character of the neighborhood, so.
Yeah, I think it's a very good application, I might add, and maybe some sort of assuage some of the concerns with the neighbor. I think this is it's a model application in terms of intensifying without overdeveloping and working within the built form, and actually improving it in the case of one of the side yard setbacks. So, okay, so we've got a motion. We have a seconder. Yes, Mr. Kaboo, all in favor? That's unanimous. The motion carries. The application is approved.
Thank you all.
All right. Moving on, item number 8, 606 Broadway Avenue. This is an application to construct a second-story addition to the rear of an existing building. There are 2 variances before us for eave projection and FSI. We've got material from the applicant as well as advisory comments from Metrolinx. And we have the agent with us online, I believe.
Hi, yeah, I'm actually sitting in for Bruno as he wasn't able to make it. My name is Nick from MXL Engineering and Associates at 1649 St. Clair Avenue West.
Okay, Nick, your last name?
Campos.
Okay, thank you. Just give us one moment here.
Sure.
I'm going to ask my colleagues whether they require a presentation on this.
It looks quite straightforward, Mr. Chair.
You have a question?
No, I don't have any question. The application looks quite straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions? No. It doesn't look like we require a presentation, so if it's all right with you, we will move to committee for a decision for you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, let's take it into committee. Yes, Ms. Casson. No. Did you? Oh, I thought. Okay, Mr. Bartolo.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Through you, very straightforward application. I don't see any issues with this nor any negative impact on the community. Therefore, I'll put forward a motion to approve this application.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Yes, second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? That's unanimous. The motion carries. The application is approved.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 9 has been deferred, so let's move on to item number 10. 102 Yorkminster Road. The purpose of the application is to construct a new detached dwelling. We've got a number of variances, including east side yard setback for a rear deck, west side yard setback for a rear second floor balcony, side yard setback for a canopy, lot coverage, east and west side main wall heights, front and rear main wall heights, building length, front yard setback, east and west side yard setback, number of platforms on a front wall, and encroachment of balconies. Stair width, projection of an architectural feature, and variances related to platform areas. On file, I have material from the applicant, as well as a letter of objection from 100 Yorkminster Road. And do we have our agent with us? Great. Miss Evangelista?
Hello?
Hello. Welcome.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, sorry. My item came up rather quickly. Sorry about that. So you went through the application and what we're proposing, a single-family dwelling, two-story, multi-generational home. This is a residential home with a flat roof. I did provide a submission that outlines, because I know when you probably looked at the public hearing notice, you found it quite disconcerting with all the variances that it has. However, a couple of things. So one, we did work with planning, and we made some changes to the application. Variants 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 have been reduced. And I just want to make sure that you have the revised, the plans that you have are revised. The public hearing notice that I provided was modified.
Sure, let's go through that. Just a matter of process here. Just if you can, for the record, just state your name and address.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
No
Ida
problem.
Evangelista, 53 Bentworth Avenue, Toronto.
Okay, thank you. Let's pull up the public notice, and if you can just take us through what those changes are. There's
Variance number 4. I did provide a marked up public hearing notice, but I will go through them.
Okay.
Variance number 4, we reduced the lot coverage to 40.66. So these changes that we've made, planning reviewed all developments that have happened in the neighborhood, and with the changes that we have made, they found that this is to be more in keeping and more in characteristic of, you know, what's transpired in the neighborhood. So variance number 4, our lot coverage is now 40.66.
okay.
Variance number 5, our east side main wall height has been reduced to 7.95.
Okay.
Variance number 6 has been reduced to 8.60. Variance number 7, 8.60. Variance number 8, 7.95.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and before we go back, these modifications, did they come out of discussion you noted with community planning?
Most definitely, yes. Yes,
Okay.
and if you see the staff report that community planning did provide, Kiana, that with the changes, as I mentioned previously, with the changes that we've modified the application to, this is more in keeping to what is transpiring in the neighborhood.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so they do support the changes that we've made.
Okay, thank you.
So,
do we have any questions?
Yes.
Okay, no questions. Okay, Ms. Evangelista, I'm just going to ask, we do have the neighbor with us. I want to give them a chance to speak, and then I'm going to come back to you. Ms. Lung?
Hi. Yeah, I'm Dr. Isabella Lung. I'm at 100 YORKMINSTER Road. Good afternoon, committee. I'm glad that I have a chance to speak to you. I have a diagram in addition to the letter. With the diagram, will it come up? Yeah. Okay, so let me explain how the proposed new house affects our family. The yellow highlighted part with blue outline represents our sunroom. The new house with the new building length stretches into this staff. The side yard setback in that area goes from a little bigger than 1.22 meter to 1.22 meter. It will block a lot of sunlight from our sunroom. The reason being the new house stretches deeper into the lot, being higher at least 8 feet and closer to our house. One of my family members, unfortunately, suffers from depression. Sunlight is prescribed as a very important therapy from the doctor for the family member. The sunroom with green trees on the fence become an important area for this therapy. With the new house closing in on us, the amount of sunlight together with the therapeutic effect for this difficult mental health condition will be greatly reduced. The applicant argued the side yard setback is bigger than 1.8 meter in some areas, but what affects us is the part adjacent to our sunroom. 1.22 meter represents greater than 32% decrease from the zoning bylaw. This is not reasonable. The proposed new house actually has 21 variances. Each of them is deemed to be minor, but these so-called minor variances work together to increase the negative impact to the neighboring house. If you consider the cumulative effect in total, it's not so minor anymore. The length of the new house is increased by over 10% compared to the zoning bylaw. This makes the house stretch deeper into the lot, well into our backyard area. The height of the house is increased by over 14%. For the part of the house adjacent to our sunroom area, the side yard setback is decreased by over 32%. This makes the new house much closer to our sunroom. The house is longer, taller, and wider than zoning allows and has less green space. It's clear the intention of the applicant is to get as much footage out of the lot as possible. Houses of this size fit into an 80 by 200 feet lot very comfortably. Unfortunately, they are trying to squeeze it into a 60 by 120 feet lot. The interests of neighbors are sacrificed. About a week ago, the applicant has made minuscule revision of about 1 to 2% of the height of the house and the size of the coverage to embellish the application and get the approval from the city. I think they can do better than that to give some breaks to their neighbor. A much bigger revision is more sincere and appropriate. I'm pleading to the Committee of Adjustment to protect our family and our environment and mandate the applicant to make more serious revisions to the height of the house, the coverage, and the side yard setback. To my disappointment, the applicant does not even get in touch and consult with the neighbor. Thus, it shows deep respect from the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a question. You did hear that there was a reduction proposed to the, I believe the side main wall height, if I'm not mistaken, variance number 5. Is it then what you're putting forth is that you believe that the height of the side main walls is still too high then at 7.95 meters?
Yeah, because compared to what they proposed before, they just did 1 to 2% less than what they proposed before, which is just minuscule. Just a demonstration of their willingness to satisfy the city, but it doesn't help us as neighbors.
Okay, fair enough. Any other questions? Okay. Let's turn it back to the agent.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to add that I did approach the neighbor. I knocked on their door about 3 weeks ago. I had my assistant also knock on their door, and I went back again Monday night, and to no answer. And I had the architect with me in the event so that we can review everything. So, and I understand we're at a time right now, people are afraid to answer the door. And I did put in my business card in the mailbox, my first attempt. So we have altered the house per, and working with planning staff. Now I have, and if you refer to page 2 of my photos on my submission, you'll see the bottom right photo. So their sunroom is on the west side of the home. Those are my next photos. My first submission that I sent in.
That's the photo there?
Yeah, that's one photo, but on my submission where I actually outline what all my variances are, so you'll see that page 2. There we go, page 2. So that bottom right. So you saw the previous photo that I provided of the next door neighbor's home, and this is also a view from the backyard to the rear of their home. So their sunroom is on the west side of their property. Now, the 1.22 meter, this is an irregular shaped lot. The 1.22 meter is just for pinch points. We do comply. We have 1.8 meters for majority of the garage. It's where the lot line does come in that we do have the 1.22 meters. And then we've stepped back the house to 1.8 meters. And then again, we have another pinch point of 1.22 meters at the very rear of the corner on both sides. But we have stepped in the house, to comply. Majority of the west wall does comply. The height, we have brought down the height tremendously. This is, the rear yard is north. We face, so they will receive the sun because it goes from east to west. So they will receive a lot of sun. There are trees there, as you can see from the photos that I've provided. The house will not be taller than theirs. We are proposing a flat roof house, yes, but it will not be taller. They do have a pitched roof, and from what we can determine, their overall height is 10 meters. The variances that we are proposing, so the length of the home is for that portion of the house, the garage portion, but we're more or less in line with the rear of their property because we do have a bit of a nook at the back of the house on the west side. However, the actual length of the house is 15.96. It's the front portion of the garage with the balcony above. Because it is a flat roof house, the owners want some architectural features, some articulation at the front of the house, and that's why we're proposing the balcony and the step backs, both at the front and at the back of the house. So I respectfully submit that with the changes that we have made and what is consistent and characteristic of all homes in the neighborhood, and the home on the other side, which was one of the photos that I provided in the pictures on Monday to staff that showed they have a main wall height of 10.15, which is considerably taller. So in closing, what we are proposing with the changes to which will complement the neighborhood and with the articulation and the architectural features on the front of the home, I believe that it's a form of intensification that does meet the 4 tests. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Just a clarifying question for myself. If we can just pull up the site plan, does the sunroom of the adjacent property show up on the site plan, or is it beyond what's demonstrated? Because I do see there's a bit of a chimney breast on the east side. Is that section, is that actually where the sunroom is, or is the sunroom further back from that?
I believe from what I could determine, it is further back. Hold on one second.
It's hard to see from the
it was
photos.
very, yeah, and it was very hard for me to get in to actually view it because of all the trees that are there, and it was hard for me to gather to get a photo of myself to see where the sunroom was, because when I did read the letter, I was under the understanding, because I didn't notice it when I went to visit the site initially. So let me just take a look here.
And if you're not sure, that's okay. I might go back to the neighbor and just ask them to confirm. But it does.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is stepped back. It is stepped back further than what we can see on the site plan.
Right. Okay, so it's then not reflected on the site plan accurately. Is that fair to say? There would be a structure sort of beyond the building depth there, beyond the corner.
So from what I can determine, it is beyond that corner, that 2.94, and a little bit beyond, because they also have another structure behind that sunroom.
Okay. All right. Very good. I just want to confirm. I'm going to confirm with the neighbor the same question. Is the sunroom reflected on the site plan, or is it beyond what's depicted there on the site plan? I don't know if staff can just pull that up, because I'm seeing the highlighted area actually further back and representing what looks like to be part of the chimney breast, but I'm not sure that that's entirely accurate. I just want to confirm that the sunroom sits, I guess it would be north, on the north side of what's depicted as the rear main wall on the plan.
And it would line up with their west wall, basically.
Correct.
Which you would see more on the survey, right?
Yeah.
So the sunroom lines up more on the west wall from what, and like I said, because it was hard to determine with all the trees and whatnot, it was hard for me to, but from what I can see, it does line up with their west wall. And it's
okay. Yeah, I don't believe the survey captured that part of the building, so it's a point of clarification I think is important in this case. Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions? Okay. I'm satisfied with that information then with respect to the sunroom, so let's take it into committee for decision. I'll just start us off then. I do recognize it is a bit of a unique lot in the fact that both of the side yards actually taper towards the back, so it is a bit challenging. In a lot of cases, we often see where a side yard setback is presented at the front of the building, they're usually just carries straight forward to the back, and in this case, I do see there are some moments at which the building actually tapers or reduces to help to mitigate that impact. So while there is a bit of a reduced side yard setback being asked for, it gets wider and then it gets less and then it gets wider. And I think that's also just, like as I said, based on the nature of the actual lot itself. It's a pretty good setback in terms of the adjacent neighbor with respect to concern there. There's a pretty decent setback, and I'm not sure that the difference of you know, 0.4, 0.38 meters here is going to make much of a difference in impact in terms of light, particularly since it appears that that sunroom structure is actually on the backside of what's depicted as the rear main wall on the survey. So the neighbor's house actually goes further back, which I think would reduce the impact if there was any shadowing impact. Those are my comments. I don't know if my colleagues share in any of that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I initially had concern about consultation, but based on the explanation from the agent, it seemed the applicant took time or took steps to try to communicate with the neighbor about their concerns. So I'm more than willing to make a motion to approve this application based on the both the communication or the attempt to communicate with the neighbors, and then the changes that the applicant has done so far.
I might also suggest that given the nature of the application, it might be of interest to tie it to the site plan, just to ensure that the setback, the variance that we're allowing is only for those areas in which where the lot tapers and the house needs to jut out into the setback and then readjust.
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? Otherwise, we have a motion.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, is the motion to approve as amended?
Yes,
I didn't hear the as amended, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As amended, yeah.
Okay, and I have them written down. If you do, maybe you want to, I don't know, staff, do we need to go over the amendments? Sure, please jump in if I've mistaken anything, but variance number 4, 40.66%, variance number 5, 7.95 meters, variance number 6, amended to 8.6 meters, variance number 7, amended to 8.6 meters, and variance number 8, amended to 7.95 meters.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes? Okay. And just ensuring we don't have any other forestry or other standard conditions to tie to. It doesn't seem so. From planning? I would actually. I actually have in my notes site plan and elevations, just given the nature of the variances.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to be more specific, the maximum building length, minimum front yard setback, and minimum side yard setbacks be developed substantially in accordance with the site plan drawing attached to staff report.
Yes. I'm satisfied. I think it's in line with the concerns that I raised. I support staff's recommendation in that respect.
Yes, all 4 conditions, please. And
I think just a site plan. Given that the height's been reduced, I think that's fair. It's a site plan. Okay. So as per staff recommendation then. Okay, do I have a seconder then for the motion? I don't see, do we have forestry? No, no forestry.
No, but can we just clarify, so it's the site plan received September 27th, 24, correct? I don't, what's the date of the report? Report's October 3rd. I don't know if staff can clarify that. Sure. And then we can look at the drawing. Yeah, there's no date on the site plan.
Actually, I do note that on the elevations, the secondary structure at the rear is stepped down to 8 meters. Now I'm inclined to suggest tying to the elevations as well, just given that there's a reduction back there. Perhaps to assuage some of the concerns regarding shadowing on the adjacent property. But Yeah, I'm looking at the west side elevation, as well as the east side elevation. Use a step down at the building at the rear, noted at 8 meters there, actually 8 meters on both elevations. So if we can limit the height at the rear to the 8 meters that's proposed on the elevation, I think that would. 7.5, no? I do, yeah, okay. So if I can put that forward as for your consideration, to
Mr.
include
Chair.
the elevations as well, just given the fact that there is a step down at the rear and we want to ensure that that's maintained.
We did receive revised plans September 27th, so do we think it's reflected in there?
I do see it reflected in there. I see the bubble as well. Actually reflected is 7.95 meters there. So, yes, thank you.
So I think we should tie the substantially in accordance with the plans that were received September 27th, 24, just to be safe.
Yeah. Let's say site plan in 4 elevations, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we've got our motion. Do we have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The motion as amended is approved with condition.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our last item of the morning. Let's see here. Just give us a moment here. Number 11 has been deferred. And just a point of clarification, if anybody's waiting on item number 13, actually is going to, we're going to deal with that in the 2 o'clock session. And that's why it's not going to be addressed this morning, just to ensure that it's in line with the public notice that was sent out. So last item of the morning, item number 12, 38 SUNCREST Drive. Purpose of the application is to construct a new dwelling, variances for driveway, lot coverage, number of stories, front stair width, rear platform encroachment, and front yard landscaping. On file with material from the applicant, memo from Urban Forestry, and a late report from Community Planning. Okay, we have our agent with us online.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee members. Could you hear me clearly?
Yes, actually, your name and address.
My name is Chonyu Yu, and I'm the agent for the subject property. My address is 2347 Kennedy Road, Scarborough. I'm very happy today on behalf of the owner at 38 SUNCREST Drive, North York.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr. Yu.
3C2L3.
You're aware of the report from Community Planning, I presume?
Yes, for sure. And I have also discussed with the planner, and we managed to increase the front yard landscaping from 50% to 60%, and therefore we eliminate the variance number 6 and the variance, the correlate variance number 1 on the public notice. So
Very
so
good,
far
very
now
good.
it's only 4 variants in front of us.
Okay. Yeah, we addressed that. Any questions at this time? Okay. Sir, I've reviewed the file. Initially, I will tell you, I did have some concerns with variance number 1 and number 6, but seeing as Community Planning picked up on the same concern and that the modification's been made, I don't need to hear a full presentation.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
There are some people present in the chambers that wish to speak, I believe.
Oh, we do. Hi. I apologize. You're here to listen. Okay. Very good. No problem. Thank you for that, for addressing that. I don't need to hear a formal presentation. I'm really happy actually to see that the front yard landscaping has been increased. I did have some concerns with that initially, but now that it meets the bylaw and also addresses variance number 1, I'm happy to see that. I don't have any further questions, but I am going to ask my colleagues whether they have questions or would like to hear a presentation from you at this time. Okay, heads are shaking. So that said, if there's anything you'd like to add, you may. Otherwise, I'm prepared to take this matter into committee for a decision.
Well, we just add on, maybe just we're aware of the forest report and will subject to the tree injury and removal permit.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
That's
okay.
Yeah, that's all I want to add on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take it into committee.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, if my colleagues have no comments, I'm happy to make a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I forward a motion to approve this application as amended. The followings are elimination of the variance number 1 and variance number 6, and I believe the application meets the 4 test. I would like to add the condition of the forestry number 2.
Okay, very good. Do I have a seconder? Second by Mr. Kaboo. All in favor? That's unanimous. The application as modified is approved. Okay, that concludes our morning session. The time is now 1:10. We will resume our 2 p.m. session. We'll be about starting 10 minutes late, but we will be resuming at 2:10 p.m. Thank you, everybody.